coming here at the moment, but what would be your perspective in terms of the most challenging feature with respect to, one, reducing contracts and getting housing affordable to a lot of Nigerians?
It's a very welcome development that the President Goodluck Jonathan wants to have a template to reduce the cost of contract. Now, that is key because if you're able to reduce the cost of contract, cost of construction, that means you'll be able to make available more social facilities, more infrastructure to the populace, which is one of the key requirements of democracy. Now, that template that is necessary to reduce the cost of construction is a sort of standard. If you look at the elements that you impute into construction activities, you have materials, labor, your overhead and profit, and then, of course, your items of preliminaries. But what is happening at the moment is that because we don't have the kind of template that you can talk of as a reference material, it's so difficult to say, the contracts are easily inflated without a baseline. So this is the right time that such policy of having a template come in place.
What happened to due process?
Again, these are all what you need to put in place. They tend to complement one another. The due process is now in place. The Bureau of Public Procurement, and that is the process. Now, when you now come to talk of contractors doing the job, that is where you need a lot of input in terms of this template that we are referring to, because one of the biggest problems is that there is no room for competition.
How do you mean?
You have contractors that are not very competent and being asked to handle a variety of projects. You have very few contractors that can handle the bulk of this project. And our biggest limitation is that most of these contractors are foreign-based.
Let me come in here, sorry, because you've just hit it. You talked about the Bureau for Public Procurement. Actually, the President directed the Director General of the Bureau for Public Procurement, as well as the Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, to look into all of that, reducing the cost. But again, how do you come in as an expert, for instance? Because if we look at all of this, Marco rightly asked, due process. We talk about quantity surveyors, we talk about engineers, we talk about builders, for instance. We're talking about this housing scheme, for instance. Where do the quantity surveyors come in into all of this so that we can now know if they're responsible for contract inflation or adequately telling us exactly what we should be getting from such contracts in the building, or maybe for housing or something below?
Quantity surveyors are cost experts.
They are cost experts?
Yes, they are specially trained to be cost experts. In a way, you refer to quantity surveyors as specialist accountants in the construction industry. Because the construction industry, the activities in the construction industry requires a lot of skill, a lot of expertise, a lot of calculations. And it's only quantity surveyors that are trained specially to handle these intricacies of cost analysis.
Are they ever, sorry to butt in here, are they ever contacted when we're talking about all of this due process?
Yes, this is where I'm coming now, and that is where the missing gap is. If you go to the ministry, you go to government officials, you don't have quantity surveyors being utilized as they should be. You don't have the services of quantity surveyors. For any 1, 2, or 3 engineers, you should be having 10 quantity surveyors, because that is where all of these other professionals, architects, engineers, they are into design. Now, it is the quantity surveyors that takes care of the cost aspect of construction activities.
Are you
The
saying
quantity
that-
surveyors is like a hub where of a wheel. Now you have other designers revolving around the quantity surveyors, because at the end of the day, whatever you do, the basic line is that what is the cost of your design? What is the cost of the execution? You know, if I'm to quickly explain, you want to buy a car, you want to buy a shirt, you want to buy, just an analogy. Your first question is how much? What is the cost? In the same vein, when you now come to talk of housing, bridges, heavy engineering, you at the end of all the design, you ask the question, what is the cost? And it is the quantity surveyor that is trained and skilled to give you that cost after we have done all our.
We're trying to sorry, Mark, but we're trying to see how we can help the government here, because this big task that's been given to two key professionals in the cabinet. Is it from the design, for instance, you're building a house now, is it from the design that, or the plan, you get to see that the quantity surveyor can decipher the costs?
Yes. The cost is a function of design. The architect will design aesthetically. The structural engineer will put in the structure. Is it going to work? It's not going to work. The services engineer, mechanical and electrical engineers, will come and put up all the electrical fittings. Now, when all of these are done, the quantity surveyors will now come and say, do all the calculations and identify what is the cost. Now, the problem we're having in our system is that, one, you don't have that thorough design put in place before you roll off any contract. That's one. Two, what is happening when we're now talking of cost savings, and which is the key,